Please welcome our moderator. He's the chairman of GSTC and he's ready on the stage. Welcome on the stage, Mr. Luigi Cabrini. Joining him on the stage is the Deputy Governor for International Marketing, Europe, Americas, Middle East, and Africa at the Tourism Authority of Thailand, TAT. Welcome on the stage, Chiravadee Khunsub. Together with Regional Vice President at Agoda, Mr. Krishna Raji. Next, Executive Director for Sustainability, Emerging Markets and Spatial Projects at the Bahamas, Ministry of Tourism, Investment and Aviation, Mr. Paul Strong. And our last panelist for today, Principal at Correct Your Group, Mr. Andrew Riley. So let's begin our slow travel.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And guess you're all tired after 2 intense days. But I hope that you have also enjoyed, learned, share your expertise with everyone else. And this will be the last panel of this conference, and then we have a final session led by our CEO, Randy. So I hope that you still have a bit of energy and to participate in these last efforts. So let me start with making a short introduction about, do I have a remote control? Here it is, okay, thank you. About what does slow travel mean. So it's not only about taking more times to visit destinations, but what is implied. Certainly the idea is that people spend more times, but also the kind of activity that slow traveler used to do that not necessarily the same of those visiting more crowded destination. We're talking about walking, cycling, and other lower impact ways to explore a destination. And the experience of slow traveling places emphasis on local culture, food, community connections. You will all know about the slow food initiative that started already over 30 years ago, and I think slow travel is in line with the same principles. So what are the impact, the positive impact of slow travel? First, there is a reduced carbon footprint, fewer longer stays, reduce, of course, the air miles that you make per day that you spend in a destination. You can better manage the resources of the destinations and easy pressure on resources like water and energy. And then it has been proved that the spending and the benefits, economic and social benefits at local destinations, they are better and more important than those of other traditional destinations. What are the benefits from the perspective of the travelers? First, you have a deeper cultural immersion. You tend to connect more with the people, with the inhabitants of the destinations, to create some linkages, to get to know them better, and they get to know better yourself. And as of course another very important consequence, which is reducing the pressure on most visited destination. I think the issue of slow travel and secondary destination crosses with other sessions that we have held these 2 days. For example, the carrying capacity and the visitor dispersion, they're interconnected in a way one are linked and favor the other. So what are the drivers? I think starting probably with the pandemics, the work from anywhere has been spread around, People now can spend one day in office or 2 days in office and then can use the other days and working from everywhere. So this is certainly a trend, the new technology that favors longer stays in secondary destinations. They're searching for authentic experiences and enhanced well-being. I think there is a feeling of spending the time better. There is a feeling of, I would say, of serenity in staying in places where, I don't know, your calmness, relaxing, rather than running around visiting monuments and museums. Now, what's the hotel? How can hotel can adapt? And I think there are a number of ways: offering slow travel packages, build long-term facilities. Sometimes in places there are even travelers that may like to stay 2-3 weeks, and maybe that offer should be adapted to the traditional hotel room. Highlight, of course, the local culture and cuisine, facilitate meaningful experiences, and provide transportation options that are in line with the principle of the slow travel. And finally, what are the ways in secondary destinations can be promoted? I mean, slow travel is closely linked with secondary destination. What you try to do is to keep a traveler, a tourist longer in a country, but to somehow divide the time of visiting from the more crowded destinations to less crowded destination. So digital storytelling, influencer, this is today has become a must. Instagrammers and Facebookers, whatever, visiting a place and spreading their experiences. Define why these destinations are unique selling points, are hidden gems, places, quote unquote, that are not known and are not visited by many people, so giving a bit the originality of visiting certain place. Encourage user-generated content by the travelers themselves, that they spread the voice about their experience. Create partnership with local businesses and promote the advantages of secondary destinations. One important issue is invest in infrastructure. Often the lack of infrastructure or let's say the poverty of infrastructure is an obstacle to promote secondary destinations. We see that in Spain. In Spain, there is a phenomenon whereby most of the countryside, many countries and many small villages getting abandoned because there is little infrastructure. So there is a movement now that through tourism, the government, national and local, can start reinvesting in these places because people are coming to spend days, weeks, even months there. And of course, develop visual assets and virtual experiences to recreate what a visitor can expect to find. And then essential, not only in slow travel and secondary destination, but I would say even more important here, to engage the local communities so the residents can become authentic ambassadors of the destinations, and they perceive the benefits and not the negative impact of the tourism. Okay, this being said, it's now my pleasure to introduce first Chiravadee Khunsub. I hope that my pronunciation is more or less good. She's the Deputy Governor for International Marketing, covers Europe, the Americas, Middle East, and Africa of the Tourism Authority of Thailand. And she has over 30 years of experience in global tourism marketing, product development, and strategic event execution. And you have played a key role in elevating Thailand's international profile as one of the leading travel destinations. And thank you for having us here. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, all delegates. I'm very excited to share with you about the slow travels in this secondary destination in Thailand. We have very short time because I see that now the monitor is running. But Luigi got privileged when you say that it's not moving off the times, by the way. Just kidding, okay. Yes. If we look at the a trend of the traveling at the global tourism today, we can clearly see that the shift of the traveler behavior is changing. the traveler is no longer to trying to see more places in less time, but instead they are looking for to seeking more meaningful experience. So traveler or tourists nowadays, they would love to deeper connection with the communities, immersive themselves with the authenticity. So Thailand, we found that this trend is going to be a core for us as I'm doing the promotion, the marketing for the long haul markets. So then this is very key for us to adjust ourselves. And we see a lot of the tourists who come to Thailand is want to engage with the local culture and nature in the meaningful ways, different from the old days. So it is what we now call slow travel. For us, slow travel is not new. What is new for us is the urgency to make the slow travel is work at scale. This is very difficult. So from Thailand perspectives, we do not see slow travel simple as a trend, but we see it as a strategy response to several important pressure facing our tourism sector today. So first, the congestion in major destinations, especially during high season in Thailand, we see that the congestion is something that we have to solve. And second, changing travel expectation towards more meaningful experience. Third, Thailand strategic, we shift from volume to value. And then where the value is not only about targeting specific segment, but about enhancing the meaningful experience that all the visitor can gain from their journey. So as you may know that Thailand has a long been success destination for a tourism destination in Asia, and tourism has become a key pillar of our GDP. So however, we also have learned that the success should not be measured only from the number of arrivals now. So how much we learned that is how much of the value that the visitor create and the tourism that benefit are distributed across the country is more important for us. So that bring us the secondary destinations, which is still present a structural challenge in Thailand. So slow travel is often seen as a marketing concept, but in reality here in Thailand, it is a structural challenge. So encouraging the traveler to stay longer is not very difficult for us. But enabling is require a strong connectivity, the infrastructure that we need more, and product readiness, accessibility, and the last but very important is the cooperations across the stakeholder that is going to make the destination, secondary destination and slow travel is more successful. And in Thailand, we approach the slow travel not only through the promotion, like I said that, so but through system and design experience development. So we have the three key pillars. And the first, that design journey is very important for the traveling nowadays. And we move from single point travel to multiple destination itineraries, encouraging travelers to explore beyond major hubs into the secondary city and local communities. The second, we try to enabling slow mobility. So we promote travel, the travel mode that to emphasize connection, including the rail journeys, road trip, and local transportation experience. Because how you travel become as important as where you go. So the third one, create depth of experience, is very important through community-based tourism, the local gastronomy, like Luigi mentions, or wellness, and nature-based experience. So which is all things that where Thailand has a very strong asset. And this is where our campaign, Healing is the New Luxury, comes in. Value is created through the moment of the reconnection, renew, recharge, and a meaningful experience rather than focusing on the material luxuries. In Thailand, I think it's same many countries that tourism is still highly concentrated in the major destinations or the major cities such as Bangkok, Phuket, or Chiang Mai, especially low season that I mentioned earlier. Meanwhile, the secondary destinations offer rich culture and strong local identities and unique experience, but mostly they still often faced with the limited visibility. And at the Tourism Authority of Thailand, we have been active promote secondary destination through various campaigns. So we have collaborated with the partners such as the OTA, Agoda, for example, and another partner to increase awareness of the hidden gem, as we call, for the secondary city or of the beaten path destinations. So we support this destination by improving their readiness for international market and promoting them globally, platforms such as ITB or WTMs. Thailand promote itself as a year-round destination. So from my perspective, slow travel is not only about place, but also it's about pace of timing to travel. So I would like to encourage anyone to think of slow travel, not only times of where we travel, but also when we travel. So of course that slow travel is not easy to scale, but slow travel requires coordinations across multiple sectors, strong local capacities, and careful design destination management. In Thailand, we have 55 secondary cities to promote by the government. But definitely, as we are the marketing arm of the country, we see that not all are fully ready yet. So we must be careful not to over-promoting destination before they are prepared. So this is where the planning, the governance, and collaboration become very crucial. And it's still now, we still see a lot of challenges in this past as well, because of I think it's those, the governance and also the collaboration among the stakeholders is very important for the sustainable tourism development. And I have a strong example to share with you of this in practice is the Blue Jasmine train journeys developed by DMC in Thailand and supported by the Tourism Authority of Thailand. So this is not just a transportation, but it is a carefully designed, a slow travel experience. So the journey connects Bangkok with the secondary city like Ayutthaya, Uthai Thani, Phitsanulok, and Sukhothai, using strategy hub and hook strategy to distribute the tourism income to smaller communities by offering diverse experience across regions. So it helped to extend lengths of stay, redistribute tourism geographically, and create deeper engagement to the local community. So this is where the slow travel become real, when the journeys and itself to create more value. And I would like to leave with two thoughts, that secondary cities are not just an option for us, but they are the essential to the future of the tourism. Dispersed tourists go around, tour around the country. And for slow travel is about the redesign the tourism system to create balance between growth and sustainability, global demand and local community, and between experience and impact. This is about the narrative of the slow travel and secondary destination in Thailand that I would like to share. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You really highlighted a lot of key points. Thank you. First, about that you don't measure success only in terms of numbers, and there is, I think, an impelling request to start measuring tourism not only by the statistics at the end of the year and see which country receive more tourists than others. Then the concept of a multi-destination strategies linked also with the need of building the right infrastructure and not to overcome destinations who are not ready. And the seasonality, and then new luxury is not about material concept, but is about experience, I would say. So thank you very much. As you know, we have Slido. My idea is to have the questions at the end of the 4 presentations, but you can start putting your question. As you know, when a question is posted, every one of you can support the question. So at the end, we'll also look at those who receive the more interest from the participants. Okay, so Krishna Rathi is the Regional Vice President of Agoda, part of Booking Holdings, where you lead the commercial strategy and market growth across Southeast Asia, covering Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, India, and Indonesia. Agoda was already mentioned in her presentation. So please, the floor is yours.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a privilege to be here sharing chair with every one of you. Ma'am very well covered about slow travel is not a trend. It's a core part of strategy now. What I want to focus today on is how did this trend emerge? Like, how did we see it happening, and what have we done about it, and what are we seeing across the world? So it's not just in parts here. It's a real consumer trend where we see across the world where people are choosing for slow travel. So yeah, since the timer is on, let me move on to my first slide. Just a quick about Agoda for those who don't know. We've been around for close to 21 years. We finish our 21 years next year. We have more than 6 million listings across the world, and we serve in more than 39 languages and have round-the-clock support for our customers. Right. The reason I'm mentioning this is just to give you a sense of the amount of data or the kind of different kind of tourists we encounter. So just to give you the scale, and what I present from here is a reflection of what these people tell us when they come to our platform. Okay, so sometime early last year, what we saw is secondary destinations started growing faster than the primary destination. What do we mean by secondary destination? It's a very loosely termed word, but if you go by don't have direct international connectivity. So like Bangkok, Phuket, they have international airports. But then we started seeing destinations which don't have international airports also started growing. So roughly you can call them secondary cities or secondary destinations. And they started outpacing even the natural growth or the average growth of the country. So that's something like 1.5, 2 years back, we started seeing that. And you can see here, it's not just 1 or 2 countries. It was happening across all the major tourist destinations, Japan, India, Thailand, Korea, or Indonesia, which is again Bali and places off Bali. So we were like, okay, why is this happening? And normally in online you do see trend, and not all trends end up being long-term business impact thing. We started digging deeper into it, and we saw like this is real customer preference. Repeat users are looking for trying new stuff, or long-haul customers are now looking to do longer stays, and so they are looking for newer experience, what they can get from the same trip, right? So these were the two big insights we got in, and then of course, what is like, is it beneficial for the destination? We started talking to our partners, and what we started seeing, and which is a no-brainer, but obviously the tourism dollar was now spreading beyond the primary cities. It was going into secondary cities. It was also, as ma'am mentioned, during peak season, the bigger cities are obviously overcrowded. It started taking people from there and putting up in secondary destinations. And as these create more memories, because when you are in a more like, okay, 8 a.m. you do this, 11 p.m. you do this, or 6 p.m. you have to do this, that's a bit mechanical. And some people choose for a slower part, and then they say, hey, we really loved it, we want to come back and do this experience again. Maybe not the same city, but they want to go experience the culture somewhere else. So you go much deeper into the country, you get attached a lot more. So armed with this, we started talking to our government partners, and of course, I'm sure they were also reading it, they get the government data. So what we saw is even government was talking about it. So one of the first actually was TAT, where we did a Grand Discovery Thailand campaign, and we started marketing about it. So till now, we saw the trend. We spoke to the biggest authorities in this space, which is obviously the government authorities. And then we said, hey, can we do something? We are seeing this. Can we promote more? So we, first campaign was obviously in Thailand. We started promoting secondary destination, and we got very positive results. And within no time, we saw most governments wanted to do it. This is just shows 3, but last year alone, we must have done like a dozen discussions around secondary destinations across Asia. So armed with that, then we started digging deeper, what can we do, right? Because demand comes, if it sustains, then supply follows, right? Because supply is a real investment. Open hotel, you can't open it overnight. So you need to put significant investment. And that's what you see now, the supply, what we have got in the last 2-3 years now is actually coming more from secondary cities. And then we said, okay, fine, we need to put our people to start getting those things. And these are just 4 of those examples, like Japan has ryokans, motels in Korea. So when we did motels, and it's a very interesting story, we thought it's for local people usage. But then we saw half of the users are actually also coming from international tourists because they wanted to experience the Korean motel culture, right? So then suddenly motels are also very popular for our international tourists in Korea. Villas, of course, in Bali, in Phuket, they are a very popular concept, and then, of course, service apartments in certain part of the world. So alternate accommodations, as we call them, they came into existence, and then we put significant effort in terms of scaling that supply and offering this to our customers. And, but we understand, and trying to keep it short, but we understand that these are fragile ecosystems, right? They are not meant for large-scale tourism, at least not yet, right? So what we committed to is we see this trend happening, can we raise awareness about it, and can we do anything to protect or educate people who are now seeing the new wave of tourism? So first of all thing, what we did is a few years back, we launched our conservation effort, which is in partnership with WWF, us, and then hotel partners, where we enroll hotel partners, and the part of the booking goes into raising funds, then which goes and empowers these conservation efforts across different countries. Till now, we have raised almost 2.9, and this year alone, we are expecting to raise more than $1.5 million. So that's how you see, like, even customers are, like, they prefer, they say, okay, this hotel is doing something more, let's go experience it. So that's number one. What we also did is, people need to know about it, like, and one thing what we do well is disseminate information. We have millions of partners on our platform, and we started training people, or at least making this material available to them, that how can they be more sustainable. So we launched the Sustainable Tourism Academy, and that has got more than 3,000 professional trained now. And somebody could say, like, yeah, all this is fine, like, but did you put your own money? We went ahead one step, and then we have also created a growth capital where we are helping small, medium partners where they can take fund from us and take bets on sustainability. And then till now, we have already deployed $100,000 where our partners have taken green bets together. So just to wrap this up, I think it's a significant part of next phase of growth for Asia. I think it's a very culturally rich and diverse continent. I think people want to see it. And of course, as Madam said, like we have to be very careful about it. We just can't scale it. It's not a big city where if 1 million tourists more come, it's no problem. We have to be very careful how we do it. We don't overmarket it, but if we do it well. And we would love to be partners in this journey with our hotel partners, government associations, and the destinations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. And I think you highlighted very well the strong connection between slow travel, secondary destination, and sustainability. This is why I think we're having the session in this conference. But I see you highlighted really what the linkages are. And I think a couple of points I really retain. One is the fact that secondary destination promote repeat and longer visitors. If you go to Venice, you just listed, okay, I've been to Venice. But in secondary destination, you go for other reasons. You go, as we say, several times for the experience, for staying there. So you may go back year after year. And finally, the role of OTAs, both, I would say, in the issue of sustainable offer, but again, linked with secondary destination. So thanks. Now, our third speaker is Paul Strone. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
You pronounced it correctly, yes.
Who is a senior executive of the Bahamas Ministry of Tourism, Investment, Aviation. You have served as executive director of global sales and global communications, and now oversee sustainability, emerging markets, and special projects, driving initiatives that support sustainable growth of the Bahamas tourism sector. Paul, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to take you to the other side of the world, to the islands of the Bahamas. I think it's important to start the presentation off with explaining the geographical makeup of the islands of the Bahamas. As you can see, the Bahamas is a country of multiple islands, 700 islands in fact, 16 of which are developed as self-sustaining independent tourism destinations. The way we segment it for marketing purposes is in 3 distinct destinations. Nassau Paradise Island, which is on the island of New Providence, which is where you'll find the larger hotels, casinos, nightlife, and that sort of thing. Then Grand Bahama Island to the north is where you'll find the larger hotels, casinos, and that sort of thing, but to a less degree. And then the collective term that we use for all the other islands is the out islands. We call them the out islands externally for marketing purposes, and internally we call them the family islands. And on those islands you find remote seclusion, small boutique hotels, a lot of nature-based activities, that sort of thing. That is where we have inherently and historically thrived in the slow travel segment. The impact of slow travel in the Bahamas has been tremendous, particularly given that we are a tourism-dependent country. We have multiple islands, as I mentioned before, and what that allows us to do is to grow our tourism product across the entire country in a more balanced, equitable, responsible, and sustainable way. It also allows for higher retention of our tourism dollars because even though Nassau Paradise Islands is the hub, when we find that going to the out islands, because most of the resorts and certainly the tour operators and the restaurants are locally owned and operated, they source their services and goods from within the community. So it obviously has a very, very strong impact on the local retention of tourism dollars, not only in the local community, but in the Bahamas, generally speaking. It also reduces the pressure on Nassau Paradise Island and the negative impact of the invisible tourism burden and the infrastructure on Nassau and Paradise Island. And finally, as an impact, it also impacts the longer stays and increase the total visitor spend, particularly from our long-haul destinations such as Thailand, Europe, the UK, those long-haul markets tend to stay longer, and of course, when they stay longer, they tend to spend more money. It's not without challenges. We have a lot of advantages. Our biggest advantage is our proximity. Our largest source market is North America, and our closest island is only 20 minutes off the coast of Florida. So that's our greatest advantage, but we also have quite a few challenges. One of them is the high cost of operations and maintenance. We have 20 international airports, which provides a benefit in that it provides ease and convenience for our source market, visitors from our source market, to obviously access these slow travel destinations. But obviously, with a country of our size, the maintenance and operations of 20 international airports to international standards, notwithstanding the fact that the government also has to maintain the infrastructure in all these islands, is quite costly. Secondly, skilled labor is a challenge, and that's a challenge because in these smaller, more remote, slow travel destinations, unfortunately, most of the younger skilled labor leaves those small remote destinations, coming to Nassau and Paradise Island for either higher education options or job opportunities for whatever reason. And unfortunately, few of them tend to return. That creates yet another challenge in that most of the operators in these slow destinations then have to import skilled labor from Nassau or the neighboring islands throughout the Bahamas. And of course, affordable housing becomes an issue. And that problem has been exacerbated post-COVID when the demand for vacation rental properties and vacations experiences in these more remote, slow destinations, the demand obviously surged after the COVID pandemic. In our case, there are three key enablers to our success in the slow travel segment. The first is community readiness and engagement, which speaks to the very, very important and critical factor that you have to engage, consult, and have the community fully involved and have their buy-in. The local community has to buy into what you're doing in these slow destinations so that they are able to support it and it becomes successful. There are two very successful programs that we've had under this pillar of community readiness and engagement, and that's our Destination Stewardship Councils and a cluster projects. And I'm going to get into top-line details of that in the interest of time in just a few minutes. The second pillar is visitor engagement. I think it was mentioned in both presentations. It's crucial that once these visitors come to these slow destinations, that they have authentic and immersive experience to engage in once they're there. The third pillar in our case that we find very, very important to our success in slow travel is demand generation, and that's the promotions and incentives to obviously drive traffic to these destinations and planning and dispersion. So just to go into a little bit of details about our successful Destination Stewardship Councils, they were designed with the support and in conjunction with the GSTC, and it basically served the objectives that are listed there. In the interest of time, I won't read them all. But the key thing is that it transitioned tourism governance from public-private to public-private and community-led destination management, which is key. The councils also collaborated to create local awareness and bring a better understanding of the importance of sustainability in their communities. Very, very important, because we all know that awareness and understanding of sustainability issues, at least in our case, is a very, very key challenge. They also formed strategic partnerships to promote responsible tourism and to support ethical, sustainable product sourcing, and to recommend respectable approaches to integrate heritage and cultural traditions into the visitor experience. Very important. And finally, obviously, they are charged with encouraging the community to engage in environmental conservation and protection of the natural beauty and biodiversity. The second program under the Community Readiness and Engagement pillar is the Andros Cluster Project. And this is a program that was developed in conjunction with the Ministry of Tourism and funded by the Compete Caribbean facility. And what it did was it united 56 core businesses in the tourism sector in the island of Andros into one market-ready cluster. They got training and development in digital marketing and in capacity development, and it strengthened those SMEs to support the blue economy in their respective community. And the support that I'm speaking of speaks specifically to the creation and development of a collective website, which we as the Ministry of Tourism Investments and Agency promoted the URL globally. It also provided assistance with developing social media channels for these various small businesses. And it also provided platforms for them to accept direct bookings, which is a huge problem for these small businesses in these more remote communities. The second pillar, once again, or the second enabler, is visitor engagement. And under that pillar, we have our very successful, award-winning people-to-people program. And this program has been around for more than 50 years. And basically what it does, it's an immersive program where visitors are paired with Bahamians of similar interest and the like. And generally, it just basically is an immersive experience where they engage with them and teach them how and provide insights on how the average Bahamian lives, our culture, our traditions. Generally, it culminates with the visitor actually being invited to the Bahamian's home where we engage in food is always important. So it's either cooking, or they cook for them, or they teach them how to cook. They meet their families. And what we found with this program is they come as visitors, and they leave as lifelong friends, hence the success of this and the long-standing success of this program. And secondly, we have obviously lots of nature-based attractions, particularly in our islands. Just to name a few, we have the Reef Rescue Network, and this is a program that is funded by the Perry Institute for Marine Sciences, and basically it's all about coral restoration. Then we have the Mission for Mangroves, which is a program that speaks to and helps to restore mangroves in select islands, and it's operated by local stewards who have been trained to be stewards of the environment. And finally, it's the Blue Action Lab Conservation Cove, and that is basically a living laboratory. And what that does is it collaborates with NGOs, with resorts, with local community leaders to facilitate coral restoration, mangrove restoration, and restoration of the queen conch. And conch is a mollusk that is very prevalent in our local cuisine. It works to preserve all those three pillars. And then finally, demand generation. Of course, this speaks to how we strategically promote these slow destinations in a very responsible and sustainable way in conjunction with the local community. And generally speaking, we advertise and promote all of the islands of the Bahamas, but we most recently launched a new advertising campaign to specifically promote the fact that we are in fact a multi-island destination by highlighting all of these out islands that are generally hidden, that people generally don't know about, by calling them out individually by name, and then also overlaying that with the particular attributes that are specific to these out islands. So the theme is, it's not just one island, it's a lifetime of them. And what that speaks to is, and hopes to encourage, is repeat business, repeat visitations, basically insinuating that you could never just come to the Bahamas once. It would take a lifetime for you to truly experience all of our multiple islands. Another program that we have that's been also very successful is our Home Sweet Home program. And this is a program that's designed to incentivize Bahamians to engage and become active participants in the travel tourism industry. It provides grants for Bahamians to provide vacation rental properties throughout the islands. And what that does is that allows Bahamians to not only enter the tourism industry in a meaningful way, but it also enhances and expands our inventory of locally owned and culturally sensitive inventory of hotel accommodations. And finally, we have a fly cruise-free promotion, which is open to both Bahamians and international visitors, but obviously it's designed primarily to drive business to these slower, more remote island destinations. And what it does is provides free round-trip air or cruise transportation from Nassau Paradise Island into these select out-island destinations. And once again, the whole purpose of that is to bring awareness and to drive business to these destinations. So I thank you very much for your time, and I appreciate your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think I retain two main points. One is the issue that for islands developing secondary destination is important and needed, but it's even more challenges for obvious reasons. For an archipelago, small islands, transportation, connectivity. And then I like that you highlighted the role of destination stewardship councils. I think this is a point that GSTC will very much relevant to us and to our concept of sustainability, so I'm glad that you raised it. Now, we have a time challenge. I hope that we have enough time for questions. So, Andrew, you are a principal consultant of Coraggio Group, which is a North America-based strategy consulting firm whose tourism and destinations practice has partnered with destinations across the USA and beyond. And you were also part of the co-training with GSTC. Andrew, please, you have the floor. Please try to stick to the time.
It's a pleasure to be here with you all this morning. And where I want to take you first is a place. This is Matala, Crete. Crete is the largest island in Greece. And historically, Matala is a small fishing village. It's on the south coast of Crete. And if you've never been, I think this picture illustrates a really perfect setting for what it is. A horseshoe bay, turquoise water. What you can't see are ancient Roman caves. This is where this photo is being taken from. And many restaurants and tavernas that are owned by families who have been in Matala for generations. And one of those is called Anna's Taverna. Now, what brought me to Matala in 2011 and subsequent years after that is I was a kayak guide. And I would bring clients from North America, from Australia, from many different places, and we would sea kayak along the south coast of Crete. We would spend 10 days, we would paddle 75 kilometers, and we would stay at family-owned inns and eat at the restaurants all along the way. What stood out to me and still stands out to me is that year after year, the other people that we would see in those restaurants and hotels were the same people, the same families with their children. Their children would get older and come back year after year. And I spoke with many of them to say, what is it that keeps people coming back? And if you've ever been to Greece, you know that relationships are really important in Greek culture. And that's what keeps people coming back. And that's something that sticks with me in my role at Coraggio Group. We're a strategy consulting firm, and I get to bring that relationship infrastructure into everything that I do for my clients at Coraggio. Related to slow travel, though, the thing that I keep coming back to and that I keep reminding clients about, and my fellow panelists have spoken to this already, but I just want to reinforce it, is that the gap for slow travel is almost never in marketing. The gap in slow travel is the infrastructure that is behind all of it. When we're talking about slow travel, and maybe for the pure marketers in the room, this will be a bit uncomfortable, but it's not a marketing challenge. It is that infrastructure and governance challenge that we have. And until we treat it that way, we'll keep producing these beautiful campaigns to talk about these far-off destinations and second cities and promote people to go to destinations that are not ready to absorb those visitors into their economy or into their communities yet. So let me show you a couple examples of what's going on in the US around slow travel. Actually, before I do, this is related to the infrastructure that nobody sees. This is the infrastructure that none of my clients who used to go on sea kayak trips would see, is when we would load up the rental car. They never found out we did this, but we'd load up the rental car with all of our boats. And this infrastructure is completely intentional. It's very specific. We load it up the same way every time. This is the only way to transport kayaks other than paddling in Greece on windy mountain roads. So without this intentionality, our infrastructure falls apart completely. If you've ever had bourbon or whiskey, you know that it has a very distinct taste, and bourbon in particular. And bourbon comes from the United States, from the state of Kentucky. The state of Kentucky has the Bourbon Trail. This was an effort to disperse visitors across the state. Kentucky's a very rural state, except for a few major cities. There are international airports in Louisville and in Lexington, but other than that, there's not much fly-in. There are over 100 distilleries that make this spirit in Kentucky. Bourbon only comes from Kentucky. And so somebody had the good idea a long time ago to say, hey, we should make a trail that connects all these together. And let's put a map together, and let's promote this to visitors. What this represents industry-wide is $10.6 billion a year in terms of bourbon and distillery tours to the state of Kentucky. Over 74% of the state's visitors come from out of state, and many of them are drawn in by this bourbon trail. When people hear bourbon trail, they think clever marketing, they see this map, they're encouraged to go to all different places. But that's not what we're actually looking at. What we're looking at here is an almost $3.5 billion capital investment that these distilleries, the Department of Transportation, the state of Kentucky, the Distillers Association, and many folks who have relationships all have formed over the last decade or so. And this is really important because this infrastructure, in some cases, is not cheap. Sometimes it's not affordable. You don't have to start at $3.5 billion. There are other places that we can go. The trail is what the visitors see, and Kentucky's been very good at doing this, but it's the infrastructure that makes it possible. Without this, that economic benefit to these rural, very rural communities is not alive. Here's another example, the state of Mississippi, which is in the South in the United States. The state of Mississippi is very well known for the birthplace of America's music, rhythm and blues. If anybody saw the movie Sinners, that is meant to take place in in Mississippi. Mississippi has a blues trail. While it doesn't involve spirits in the same way that Kentucky does, it still involves the infrastructure to have it take place. And Mississippi is a very, very rural destination. There are over 200 landmarks that indicate where different places are. John Lee Hooker, Kingfish, all these different beautiful blues artists that have existed from the Jim Crow era in the United States up until now have come out of Mississippi and have influenced the Beatles and rock music and so much. So it's rich history here, and this trail infrastructure connects so much, just like the Bourbon Trail did in Kentucky. But before the first visitors came to Clarksdale or came to any of these towns, there was work done to lay the road to say, how are people going to get from here to there? What are the relationships that needs to be here? And what are the communities? How are they going to support it? So I want to leave you with three things that I always impress upon our clients at Carraggio. So one of them is an audit for readiness before you begin. All of the destinations and efforts that you've heard about so far have a lot of back-end work that went into what they do. Paul describing the infrastructure and connecting the islands via boat or airfare, that took a lot of effort. So an audit can be a great starting place for you. It's not a campaign brief, it's something that brings you into the reality of your current state. The second is the governance infrastructure in those secondary destinations. What does it look like? What kind of support or readiness do they need? Do they need financial resource? Do they need human resource? What is it that will prepare those destinations to welcome visitors in so that they're not overrun? Third is change just one metric. We always evaluate the number of arrivals into a destination. That gets reported out to our boards, that gets reported out to many people. The metric that I want you to focus on is what is the locally retained revenue per visitor day in your destinations. Another way put, how much revenue is staying in these communities when visitors come from one destination into their own homes. These three things can make significant changes where you don't have to invest $3.5 billion right away. And going back to my experience in Greece, Anna and her husband George are still running their beautiful taverna, and the infrastructure certainly showed up before I was there, and I'm thankful for it because that meant my clients and my experience getting to have this wonderful food. I relied on pathways, I relied on storytelling. I was able to form bonds with Anna and George and their children, and now their grandchildren who helped to run their taverna. The destinations that get this right, like some of the destinations in Thailand, the Bahamas, and many of you all in the audience here, are the ones that are designing for it. You're not just hoping for it, you're designing for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I think you pointed out a very good point, and I think probably in the round of questions we'll come back again. It comes before the need of infrastructure, it comes before the marketing. You clearly have a clear position on that, and your point is that infrastructure comes first. This maybe is also a call to more strategy at the national and regional level, and linkages between who plans for tourism and other sectors. As I mentioned, the case of Spain, for example, you will need an infrastructure that is useful for tourism, but is also useful for the local population. So use tourism as a tool for development in certain areas, and get investment from different, let's say, budget items of the government. Good. We have about shortly less than 15 minutes for our questions. The first question was put by Randy, and he's also our CEO, so he will have the priority in the answer. So that question is to you, Khun, and Khmer sites in Isan are world class. Why don't you more strongly promote them?
Oh, actually, we promote them, by the way. But as I mentioned about the, if you take a look about the Thailand map, so then we have like 5 regions. Isan is the most difficult to sell, frankly speaking, because of the accessibility, because of the connectivities. But the thing now, it developed more in terms of the air connectivity from Bangkok to Ubon, from Bangkok to Buriram, as you mentioned about the Khmer site. Actually, the strategy that TAT promote that we have to combine between the main city, like Bangkok, to Khon Kaen, and Khon Kaen it can be a hub in Isan, and then connect to the province, that's the Khmer side in Thailand. So which is now, I'm taking care of the Europe all office, about 7 office. We also this year, we are going to promote the festival in Ubon Ratchathani, and also we combine to visit, one day visit to the historical site in the Isan. So we do promoting, but we also set the priority as well. And the most important that I share with you before is more or less is about the connectivities and also the readiness of the attractions as well. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Khun. Question from Lorenzo that was supported by other participants is, how do you ensure that slow destinations remain slow? If demand generation becomes too successful, are loading capacity predetermined and adhered to? Maybe I would like to have Paul, I mean, since you're in an island when loading capacity, especially in small islands, is very important. Do you do some planning ahead of what one of your small islands, of how many tourists can receive, and do you plan accordingly? What is your strategy on that?
Yes, the strategy really is driven by the community and what the infrastructure can currently retain. For the most part, even though we have all these airports, there are smaller the airport can only accommodate small aircraft, and there's really no plan to expand them to the point where it's, mass tourism or lengthening the runways to accommodate large aircraft. So the short answer is yes, but the community is really going to determine how big and how much we expand these. But because Nassau and Paradise Island and to some extent Grand Bahamas are very developed for mass tourism, the strategic plan is to keep these very small, remote. There are regulations in place to the size of the hotel and resort accommodations that can be constructed. So once again, we're doing it, as I would have mentioned, in a very responsible and sustainable way in conjunction with the community.
Thank you. I interject here as moderator, take the privilege of making a question. There is always with secondary destinations, are you ready as a government or as a responsible for a destination to reduce the number of visitors in your main destinations, or you just want to add in terms of visiting days or in terms of income? Because the key question is promoting secondary destination enough to relieve, I would say, as I mentioned in my opening, to me congestion today, over tourist, tourismophobia, call it as you like, is probably the bigger threat inherent to tourists. There are external threats, but inherent to our model. So do you think that indeed leadership, public and private leadership, are ready to renounce to a number of visitors in main destinations to move them to secondary destination? Maybe Kun and whoever would like to respond. I think it's an important question to me.
Okay, I can start. From my point of view, for the like a TAT, when we're starting to promote secondary destinations, it's become from the demand from the traveler or tourists as well, that Thailand, we have like more than 60% repeater come to visit Thailand. So then we also have to looking for some new destinations, and together with the trend of the travelers now is they would love to have more experiences. So that's why TAT, we come up with the secondary destinations. And the second thing, during high seasons, winter time in Europe, we have a lot of the tourists come, it's crowded. And also, why not that we try to disperse the tourists, not only, be in only the main cities. So then the secondary city is also the answer as well. So this, I think, is the reason is also the pain point of the destination and also the opportunity that we see. That's why we should promote the secondary destinations.
What is the view from OTA's organization like Agoda and Korak?
Normally
Are you ready to renounce to some of the potential benefits?
So what we see normally, it adjusts over mid to long term, right? Because end of the day, the number of hotels are fixed, connectivity is fixed. You can't start flying 100 planes overnight, right? So normally we see over a period of time, it stabilizes. But in recent times, what we are seeing, social media really has an impact. Sometimes we see real big burst of demand in certain slow destinations because they became very popular on social media. That's the small period it becomes tough to adjust. But eventually what happens if more tourists show up, either the rates go up and they auto-corrects over a period of time. So that's normally what we have seen in this. Haven't seen it like continuously being a big impact yet. And I read some through questions, but just to add, like, is it tough? But as ma'am was mentioning, there are 55 cities. So you can plan it. Okay, you see that these two cities are now hitting max. You start diverting tourists because, as I said, like, it can be heavily influenced by marketing, what you say, when you say, whom you say. So I think we can manage it, but of course it has to be a plan. It cannot be, okay, let's keep doing and something will happen. It shouldn't be a hope, it should be a plan.
Andrew, your view, is this addition or redistribution of tourist flows?
I do think that it's distribution, and I think the distribution is really important. Paul, you said it really well, that like when we're leading with what the communities want, a community that may be very ready to accept tourists. They've gone through an audit and they feel very ready to accept tourists on paper. They may not want tourists. And there might be another community that is not at all ready to accept tourists, but they are hungry to welcome people into their communities. And in the United States, we have indigenous nations, Native Americans in the lower 48s, Alaska Native villages in Alaska, and Native Hawaiian communities in Hawaii. And in getting to work with those communities, they are not a monolith. Like many communities are not a monolith, and so we must understand, even if they're ready, do they want to welcome people in? Once we can, then I think that distribution can be very powerful because we're inviting them. We're not pushing them, we're inviting them in.
Thank you. Was one question about on secondary cities. I mean, this is especially for Kun and for Paul. how do you create new destinations? How you fund them? Where you find the funds, the liquidity to make sure that infrastructure is there to receive and not to create a problem even outside the main destinations?
Okay, I try to answer because of the mainly our TAT job is to promote. But by the way, the Thai government, they also like local government to taking care of the attractions or the village or the community. So then the funding is come from the local government itself, and but mainly. I think the readiness of the community is have to become from themselves first before the funding fund to the communities, because of if we starting with the money, so I try to say that we don't teach the community to give them a fish, but we learn them to give them a net to fishing. So then most of the mechanisms or the methods that the government who taking care to develop the community-based tourism is most of that they give them a knowledge and also training them how to prepare, how to be readiness to be destinations for slow travels or to be community-based tourism. So then Thailand working in that way, yes.
So see the financial support not as a subsidy,
Right.
but as a development strategy of the community, and that should come from the community first, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Paul?
I could summarize it very quickly. In our case, we're a tourism-dependent economy, and I don't foresee us not being tourism-dependent for many, many years to come. So the funding for any sort of infrastructure in any of our islands is funded by the government.
Good. So we have just 2 minutes for 30 seconds final message from each one of you for the audience here. Please, Andrew, would you like to start?
Quick 30 seconds, and seeing one of the questions on here, this is a much longer than 30-second response, but what I will say is that there are some really creative ways to measure locally retained revenue. One of those ways is by working with your tour operators that are bringing people into secondary cities. Find those tour operators that are willing to raise their hand and say, we want to be a part of a pilot project to understand how much revenue our guests are bringing into a community. I got to experience a cashew factory here in Phuket this week, and it was really amazing to hear the relationship between the tour operator and this factory. And so being able to have these relationships, I guarantee you that there are people in your communities who would say, yes, we want to help understand what this looks like. There are many, many more creative ways to go beyond that, and perhaps it is a standalone session at a future GSTC conference.
Good. Thank you. One sentence final message.
There's an increasing demand for slow travel, and in tourism-dependent economies like us, it's not whether we want to, we have to accept it, but how we go about developing those slow tourism destinations, I think, is the key point. And we intend to do that responsibly, sustainably, and in conjunction with the local communities.
Great. Thank you. Great.
Yeah, I'll stay in my area of expertise about reaching more customers. We think it's like a trend to stay. It's core part of any nation's strategy now. Any inbound country should be part of the strategy. And what only piece of advice I could give is try fast. Like online is a great way to know very fast. You don't need to do like a big marketing campaign. You can test fast, and then that would be my advice. Test it. Are customers looking for it? What are the things they're looking for it? So that can help you plan better. So yeah.
Great. Thank you. Kun, your final message?
Thank you. We talk about the slow travels, so then don't make it fast, because of if the communities are not ready, so it's going to be another way around to harmful the community. So then the slow travel in secondary destinations. So I think we have to careful in terms of the size of the experience, and also in terms of to promote when they are ready.
Thank you very much. A big round of applause for this very interesting panelists. that we had to close our conference.